just this really beautiful invitation that there is all that we are, like, as human beings. We're all human beings together as like the more than human world, and the unseen and the shadows and just all of it. Like, we can embrace all of it into this space of our wholeness and into the space of what we're becoming and what's possible. And so it feels right for this time. It really does. And the future of my wildest dreams right now, it's being in a place where we can really be who we are as human beings, and that we can live from that place of soul, and that we can support each other, and that we can have our basic needs met, and that we can free up our intuition and imagination and our creativity and bring that into this world. Welcome to the new series. As we move into spring in the Northern Hemisphere, we welcome back friends, old and new, from all over the world. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. It feels amazing to be back on air and with you all. And I'm really excited for all that we have to come in this coming season. I am fresh off a pilgrimage with our friends and guests, Charlotte Pulver, Sam Lee, and Chris Charles Park, walking the Sovereign Line of London to sacred sites across the city to welcome in the spring equinox. We have been doing some good wintering, taking some time to listen and recalibrate, to slow down and rest. We have an incredible team that has come together to support this vision and all our offerings, and I am so honoured to introduce you to everyone here in this episode. We have been working behind the scenes on creating an app and incredible experience for our community membership. We'll be launching this next month. We also have another round of the beautiful leadership immersion and mentoring starting very soon. If you would like to work with me on a one-to-one basis over a journey of 3 months, I can support you with a transition or launching something creative. We shift subconscious patterns and embed into your life practices that support your being. It's powerful, subtle, and opens up new seeds within you. You can find out more about this on www.amisha.co.uk/leadership. All That We Are will be hosting an incredible learning journey that starts in early May. It's called From Me to We, and we have an inspiring lineup of speakers for this, including Swati Martin, Nina Simons, Sally Kempton, Jeremy Lent, Charles Eisenstein, Matt McCartney, Richard Rudd, and Claire Dubois. In addition to this, we are planning our summer retreat and a London launch event of our membership and new name. We will share more about these in due course. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about our story as we begin this new chapter together. This project began in 2010 as Think At Vote in the run-up to a UK election. Realising that politics was broken, we made a ballot box and asked the question, what is the future we choose? I actually still have the base of the ballot box. It makes up my altar in my house and reminds me of this powerful moment in time of gathering people to really acknowledge that politics was broken and that we couldn't trust in politicians to create the future that we choose. And so we had to open that within ourselves. We wanted to empower each person we met with the simple permission to vision the futures of their wildest dreams and dare to create it in both big and small ways. What struck us most during this exploration was how many people struggled to feel like they mattered, like what they wanted could make a difference. This inspired us deeper to open up that possibility in every person and share the wisdom that we create the future by how we spend our time, money, and energy, and what we do individually and collectively matters. Think At Vote struck a collective nerve, and we received widespread press, such as a feature in Marie Claire with the headline, Making Politics Fashionable. We coined the term creative activism and went on to do some powerful art installations and collaborations. In 2012, this culminated with our book, The Future We Choose, which was launched at the Climate Talks Rio Plus 20. The book featured over 200 voices sharing their visions of the world that they want to live in and how we can create it. The book speaks to the activist in all of us and opens up the question, how will you create beauty in the world? This book was birthed in many ways by my determination to change the conversation around politics and activism and create something empowering and inspiring. I was able to make this highly collaborative without any funding or agenda, other than it felt right and it felt important. It received many beautiful reviews, such as this one. Imagination is the most precious currency we have. This anthology is a priceless, awe-inspiring companion in a time for new dreams. In 2016, we published a new edition of the book with the title, The Future is Beautiful. This spoke to what was possible with the power of our human intelligence and our presence in the world, with the world turning in even more curious ways and our systems revealing themselves as even more broken and exploitative. We wanted to be a seed of beauty, of possibility, of meaning and inspiration. In 2017, we launched our globally acclaimed podcast, which is now listened to in almost 200 countries. Thank you to each one of you that listens and that is part of this, because we really do it for you and with you. We were moved to speak to people whose work and lives are challenging the dominant story. We offered the conversations as long, unedited, and without pre-prepared questions, so they could be alive in a way we hadn't experienced media before. We wanted them to explore the weave between politics, spirituality, sustainability, and creativity, so we can come out of silos and bring more of who we are into our lives. These inspiring conversations also look into the darkness and difficulties of life and challenging the status quo, offering a sanctuary and a grounded optimism. We wanted to create a space to explore the living questions and foster community for those exploring this relationship between our inner worlds and the collective. Now we are a global platform where you can come on a journey of transformation with us through our membership community, courses, events, and retreats. We have changed our name now in 2022 to reflect the rapidly changing world we find ourselves in. Although we understood the nuance and the invitation in beauty, we felt it to be insensitive and exclusive somehow. Not everyone feels hopeful about the future, and this was always a place where those with anxiety or fear could come to hear a different perspective from what is offered in dominant culture. We needed a name that speaks of wholeness and reclamation and inclusivity and empathy, so much of what's needed now. And so here we are, with all that we are becoming, and all that is possible. And now you are here. Welcome. In this collective episode, you will hear from our team of femmes who work on this show from Britain to South Africa to Turtle Island. You will hear the voices of Annegret Affolderbach, Mary Chan, Helly Cameron, Azadeh Momen Galibaf, Carrie Scott, Maria Dorothea Skov, and Charlie Livingston. This isn't necessarily the order in which you'll hear them, but is the order in which they've been part of this journey. It is an honor to work with all of these women collectively and with so much care and generosity. And I would like to take this moment to thank everybody that has been involved in this journey in every different incarnation over the past 12 years. We explore the theme here of all that we are, including the name change, some highlights or standout moments from the last series, and our medicine of this pandemic. In this conversation called A Sanctuary for Emergence, where we speak to the question, how do we flourish potential and change within our community? We hope that you enjoy this episode and welcome you into this journey of Series 6. Welcome to All That We Are, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between activism, the sacred, creativity, and regeneration, the spaces where our inner and outer worlds dance. From healing trauma to nature connection, to new technologies to ancient wisdom, it's time for us to move beyond silos and into an integrated way of being. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a more beautiful future. Despite the challenges we face as a global community or the pressures we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to listen, to ask ourselves the big questions, and to share what we are already doing and envisioning, we create the futures of our wildest dreams. And we begin to embody all that we are becoming, and all that is possible.
Hello, friends. My name is Azadeh, which means freedom in my native tongue, Farsi. I was born in Iran, immigrated to Canada during the Iran-Iraq War when I was quite young. And right now, I'm beaming in from the ancestral homeland of the Lenape people, also known as New York City, which has been my home for the past 11 years. I'm really excited and humbled to be part of this journey with Amisha and the All That We Are team and all of you, in service to stepping into all that we are and all that is possible, even in what feels like such turbulent times. My role for All That We Are will be focused on curation of workshops and other content. And so I'm really excited for the next course that we'll be announcing called From Me to We, which I hope will really resonate and call to many of you. I come to this project after being a dedicated listener of the podcast and doing Amisha's beautiful leadership immersion and mentoring with her. This was an experience that really helped to crystallize how and for what I want to be in deeper service to as a sacred activist. When I discovered the Future is Beautiful podcast, it felt like a homecoming for my soul. So I'm thrilled to be working with the All That We Are team in the next phase of this project's evolution. One of my all-time favorite episodes from the podcast last season was the one with Alnoor Ladha entitled, You Are Entrusted with Everything and Entitled to Nothing, a Sufi proverb from the Great Mother to her children. This episode starts off with Amisha reading a powerful passage from the American poet and author Clarissa Pinkola Estes to remind us that we were made for these times. Please, friends, listen to this episode in full and Amisha's reading of this powerful passage to remind us that our souls were made for these turbulent times, these turbulent waters that we're in, and how important it is that we not give in to despair, that we shine our lights brightly and find one another so that we may be in service to justice, life, truth, and all that is sacred and beautiful and worth serving. And Alnoor, in his brilliance, offers a powerful compass to help us navigate these turbulent waters we're in, to understand this time and the culture and the water we are swimming in. Late stage capitalism, post-truth, you know the drill. And the conversation for me really offers an invitation to remain deeply anchored in our highest vision and values so that we may embody that vision and act in the world. My medicine for this pandemic has been nurturing my relationship to the more than human world, to place, to nature. As a refugee and child that grew up mostly in urban and suburban environments, I never really had much of a relationship to nature. So my daily long meditative walks in Prospect Park in Brooklyn and the richness of what is communicated when one slows down and humbly listens, that has been the most powerful medicine for me. And it has given me such a sense of belonging to the earth and our great mother. I am called to all that we are and excited by the possibility of this name because while I feel and see all the systems of power and oppression that are at the root of so much of the suffering in our world, I see how deeply entangled we are with all of that. I also feel, though, within us, the potential to be liberated from these systems, to be in highest service to life, to beauty and all that is sacred. For me, all that we are is about remembering who we are, what we are, and the wider web of life we are a part of. It's about reclaiming that connection to ourselves, one another, and this beautiful living planet. When we remember all that we are and all that is possible, we might co-create, embody, and live the future of our wildest dreams. even if it's not a future that we will see in this lifetime. To me, it invites us to an expanded sense of self and service that honors the dreams and heals the wounds of our ancestors, that serves generations that come after us, and that is in service to all that is sacred to life, to that delicate balance. It's a future that I can feel is possible deeply in my heart and in my bones. And on good days, and especially when I'm in community with kindred souls, it is a pulse that fuels every thought, word, and deed, a state of being, of wholeness, of profound interconnection and magic.
Hi, I'm Charlie and I'm based in the UK. I'm new to All That We Are, and I actually first met Amisha at a Sally Kempton workshop in London. Sally Kempton has also been a really inspiring podcast guest, so that feels quite appropriate. Been listening for a few years now, and I'm really excited to get more involved. I'll be working mostly on the courses and events and membership, all of which I'm excited about, but mostly the courses, as I love learning and working in community. One of many episodes that was really inspiring for me from the last series was with Claire Dubois talking about Tree Sisters. It was a beautiful call to action for us to wake up to what each one of us is doing and can do to live a life of reciprocity. She spoke so passionately about the importance of feminine leadership in terms of listening and longing and listening to our intuition, finding our purpose and seeing the sacred in nature. I was so inspired by what she's created with Tree Sisters, and her words sowed many seeds for me to commit to loving action. And one quote that I remember that she said, she posed many questions, but she said, "What is rising in you that needs to be unleashed on behalf of life?" My medicine from the pandemic was mostly movement in many forms, but especially as capoeira Angola, which is a African dance fight from Brazil, and also yoga. Also, whenever I can, to be in nature, and particularly in or by the water. I love the new name, All That We Are. For me, it embraces all beings and infinite possibility for connection and action. I think the name All That We Are is quite tantric in that it's a recognition and a remembrance of our wholeness. It's an embrace of all the messy bits, all the chaos and the beauty, and the power and the potential. I feel that this new name and direction holds great possibility to reach out and include more people, and with that, the potential for more collaborative action. In the future of my wildest dreams, each person can see their own true nature as whole and perfect and complete. We can see others as a reflection of that wholeness. In this future, humans can respect and honor each other and the earth and the rivers, the trees and the animals, all as sacred and divine and not for exploitation or extraction. I vision a co-created future in which we spend less time on screens and isolated from one another, and more time in nature and in connection and collaboration with others, and where we all care for each other and for the natural world and the ancestors. When we listen deeply to understand each other and to respect and celebrate difference, where all beings can walk and love and be in this world without fear, without violence, without conflict. I dream of a future in which resources are distributed fairly and equally, and all beings have equal access to good quality food and nourishment and education and healthcare, and no one has more than their fair share. I dream of a time in which the earth and the forests and the waters can heal and regenerate from decades of human destruction, and we can live in reciprocity with the earth and with each other.
My name is Carrie, and I'm currently based in Portland, Oregon, US. My role with the team of All That We Are is being part of the team helping create the birth of the community platform. And 2, as a loyal listener of the podcast and participant in the courses. I struggled to identify one particular episode that stood out, as so many are meaningful to me, and I felt really nurtured by so many of these conversations. I was really inspired by the conversation with Claire Dubois in episode 130, and some words from this episode that resonated with me were that the seeds are in us here and now, and everything is sacred enough to be valued. And I love when she asks, "Who are you? What is rising in you?" My medicine of this pandemic has really been in many gifts, but around this gift in particular, that is the gift of rethinking my time and the feeling that I have time. The circumstances of this all provided me with the gift of time to think and be without an outside agenda or schedule, and to get in touch with some of my own deeper truths and really trust my inner instincts, my inner intuitions. It helped me get more clarity on some previously hidden desires and truths, as well as some closure on some life experiences that had really troubled me. This gift of time was so beautiful because I felt it provided me the space to make new connections, build new community, and see a new way to be that felt more authentic and more true. This medicine of time, which has been beautiful for me, has been allowing myself to refocus my connection and to listen to that inner guiding whisper that has helped focus a bit more for me on where to be of service. Another gift connected to this gift of time has been presence to be available, to answer a calling to support my family and to tend to their needs, and to just be more present and available to do that than I had previously been. And through all this too, there's an added joy of allowing myself the time to wander in the forest, long walks in the forest or the park, and that privilege of not having the same obligations, and to have that space to be breathing in the scents and sounds and savoring that misty goodness of the Pacific Northwest. What the name All That We Are means to me is community and presence, that we together can do so much, but it is together. And that community, including being seen in that community, is what helps us in going into that sense of being who we are. And this too is my vision for the future and possibility for beautiful connection that we can all weave together just by being who we are can often be enough. And that trusting our innate wisdom and really simply just connecting without the doing can be so powerful. Like, what is it to feel safe and connected and feel seen? Challenges and all. This I find really empowering, that what is possible, that we both realize our creativity and be empowered to use that and contribute gifts that we each have to co-create a beautiful, honest, true to ourselves way to be.
My name is Maria. I live in the UK, in London, and I'm from Denmark. I very recently become a part of the All That We Are team as the event coordinator and curator. But I've actually been listening to the podcast on and off since the very beginning in 2017. And I was aware of Amisha's work through The Alternative, which is a social political platform that I work on with Indra Adnan, who some of you may know or recognize because she's been a guest of the podcast before. I strongly resonated and felt inspired by this statement, "The future is beautiful." So that's why I started to listen. What I'm excited for coming up this year for the podcast and for All That We Are is, of course, creating lots of events and conversations and gathering people to share this conversation and practice. So an episode from the last season I really enjoyed listening to was the very last one, actually, titled We Are Nature, which was a recording of a live conversation in nature and with a live audience and with bird songs and children in the background. And it was at the end of this pilgrimage. And I think those aspects made the conversation like very dynamic and quite real and engaging. And during the course of it, I went through lots of emotions, like feeling both grief and excitement and hope and connectedness. And at the very end, I believe, closing comments, Bruce Perry talked about how getting out of our bubbles and moving into other places of society and being a good example and holding out a hand to others, and also learning how to communicate our ideas and wisdom so that they resonate with a wider spectrum of people. I really resonated with that. And to me, that really also feels like the work that we need to do. And it's also the work that we're trying to do at the Alternative to some aspects. It's also what Buddha did, actually. He left the palace to connect with other people, to meet other people, and attain enlightenment to share his teachings. So I thought that was quite cool. And also the podcast inspired me to go into the English countryside this summer and do some deep listening and deep connecting with nature. So what kept me sane during this pandemic? Well, 2020 in particular was quite a challenging year for me personally, but I know it was for many, many people, and if not for all of us, of course. And I actually came back from a 10-week meditation retreat on the day that the UK went into lockdown, and I'd given up the place that I lived and work so that I can go on this retreat so that I could afford it. So I came back, without a place to live and without any work. Yeah, I found that situation quite unsettling. And even though I'd just been, in this 10-week retreat, quite quickly my mind started to become, unpeaceful and unsettled. And I ended up, in quite a few weird, not very good living situations. And I felt sorry for myself a lot of the time. But what really helped me was the practice of compassion. And I guess the simplest way that I can describe that is just to move my mind from the suffering of myself, from my own suffering, over to the suffering of others and feeling connected to others in that way. Another thing that I did was to create a practice WhatsApp group with people within my Buddhist community from around the world, actually, so that we could help each other practice and keep each other accountable on these particular practices that we do within my tradition. So every day we would somewhat check in on each other, how we did with our practice, and keep each other accountable in that way. And that helped me a lot to stay on track with my practice, which is what helps me keep on track with my inner peace and my happiness. That's also what the community of all that we are can offer each other. A place to come together, to share practice, to talk about how we bring the ideas shared in the podcast integrated into our everyday lives, but also to keep each other, again, accountable, have a place to check in on each other and help each other with the quite difficult thing that it is to establish a daily practice. So I think I shared earlier that I really loved the name The Future is Beautiful, and the kind of bold statement that it is and the claiming of the future that it suggests. So in a way, I was a bit sad to see that name go and the reference to the future go as well. But the more I'm sitting with the name All That We Are, to me it feels embracing and accepting of where we're at the moment and who we are as well. To me, it's an invitation to show up as full, whole human being with flaws, sharing vulnerabilities as well, it's not that often I have that courage to show up fully in certain spaces. So I really appreciate that. All that we are also speaks to the potential for great peace and great happiness and great love that exists within each sentient being. To me, that in reality, that's all that we are. We're not in reality, and inherently we are not all the suffering that we create for ourselves and others. All that we are opens up to a great exploration of ourselves and our community. So what is my vision for the future of my wildest dreams? Wow, I could talk about this all day, but maybe to narrow it down a bit, I studied leisure management, and one of the ideas that I explored is the idea of the leisure society, or the utopian dream of the leisure society. And I've read a lot about this, and this dream has existed for a long time. Yeah, of a life with a lot less work and much more leisure. And that's really the kind of future that I dream of, where people have time to create and to develop, to play, and to serve their communities, to connect with others, and to not be caught up in these bullshit jobs, which are the reality for the majority of people on this earth. It's very, very few of us who really have the chance to do work that excites us and ignites us and give us energy instead of drain us. So yeah, that's what I really hope for everyone in the future. And I don't think it's that unrealistic.
Hello, my name is Mary Chan. I am the sound editor for All That We Are since episode number 29. One of the episodes that really stood out to me during the last season was episode number 127 with Nasreen Sheikh. Such a powerful episode for me to bring attention to the modern first world slavery, as she called it. I was just jaw dropped when I heard that phrase, because as she described it, the modern version of world slavery is not with humans, but in the form of products that we purchase. That statement made me go, wow, yes, oh my gosh, of course it is. How did I not see it until I heard her say it? And that was my privilege showing, being so disconnected from my purchases, even though I thought I was very aware of where my clothes came from and how they were made. But even then, there were so many layers, I guess, that I was aware of, but I pushed away and didn't really bring to the forefront of my mind until I was listening to her speak. I love her words empowering women, and it really brought me back to my own childhood because my mother worked as a seamstress, but when I was a kid, I didn't know what that job title was. I remember being in elementary school and my teacher would say, as an exercise, everyone write down what your mom and dad does. And I was like, well, I don't know, my mom sews clothes for a living. But really, she worked in a factory. And in the early 80s, it was a good factory that she worked in. But then economies shifted, production was no longer done locally. And my mom, the only work that she found was working at small or really hidden behind the scenes sewing companies to find piecework. And they were very small factories. They were dirty. They were noisy. And it was the only thing that she could do to make a living. And although we are lucky enough to live in a place in the world, and I am in Canada, where I was born and grew up in Vancouver, where what I saw wasn't as severe as the inhumanity of clothing production that Nasreen talked about, but it still brought forward to my mind the barriers my mom had to overcome. And with that, she empowered me to be a strong, creative person. And I, make my own clothes and knit my own clothes as well, not only as a creative outlet, but as I grew older, eventually shifting and having the realization of sweatshops in other parts of the world and realizing my mom essentially worked in a sweatshop. Maybe I didn't want to equate her with that and I didn't use that term, but being an adult now and being more aware, yes, that was where she worked. She was a sweatshop. She wasn't a seamstress, as my teacher would like to have called her. She worked in a sweatshop. So now being able to just realize that in other parts of the world, people get affected by my buying habits. And so now I realize also making my own clothes is really out of the respect for the work my mom did when I was a child. And I really love that creative process of it as well. And during the pandemic, I have not had a lot of time to do a lot of knitting and sewing that I would have liked. What really did keep me sane was being present with my daughter. At the beginning of the pandemic, I fought between caring for my family while working at home at the same time. But it was when I shut out the world and connected in that moment with my daughter that everything just seemed like it was all right. It was going to be okay. She transitioned from being a 4-year-old dependent on me during the start of the pandemic to now a very independent, curious 6-year-old, knowing what is kind, how to be kind, and being supportive of others. And really what else has kept me sane is the fact that we had school that was open. So she got to go to kindergarten when she was 5, and that really changed how I was able to move on with my day-to-day. As for the name change, I love the we in our name, all that we are. It creates a greater sense for me that everyone is part of the community, this community of the globe and the conversations that we are having, and that we are all a citizen of the world. And this name change can encompass more of our vision without sugarcoating what our future can bring. I feel a sense of greater positivity and growth from this name, and I can't wait to hear how it all unfolds in our future episodes. My vision for the future of my wildest dreams is that we are more kind. And thinking back to what my daughter has learned since starting kindergarten is how to be kind to others, how to be kind to yourself, and how to be kind to this place. That is her school's motto, and we are really, really embracing that at home. And so with that, my hope is that everyone understands that we are a citizen of this place, that we are being kind to Mother Earth, and that we must work together to ensure our home's survival and our own survival, that we need to be more conscious with our decisions and choices because our actions affect others. And as Nasreen says on the episode that I loved from the past season, once we know, we can make a more informed choice for a better future. Once we know, we can then become more responsible. Knowing too that this can sound very overwhelming, but know that it only takes one small step at a time to make a change for all that we are. So I hope that you too are kind to others, kind to yourself, and kind to this place.
I am Annegret Afouderbach, and I'm currently based in Johannesburg, South Africa. We are going into late summer this side of the world. We are currently having some very balmy days. While I'm recording this voice note, I am looking out at the sky and the treetops that surround our home. And you might hear the occasional bird in the background, maybe some cars passing in the distance while I'm sharing some of my thoughts. I get to hear all of the interviews that we record for All That We Are, fresh off the mics, and I write all the words for the podcast that adorn the podcast and social media pages. It's been a very beautiful unfolding working with a team of inspiring women for the past couple of years during these undoubtedly unusual and often eye-opening times. I love that we continued creating podcasts. I think somewhere close to 55 episodes, despite the obvious challenges. It felt very grounding and affirming bringing these episodes alive across different continents and, feeling our interconnectedness and hearing voices with such life-affirming insights. Amisha and I have been friends for a very long time. We crossed paths as we were both part of sparking the sustainable fashion movement in London back in 2005 and even before. So we have witnessed each other's growth, our growth and the complexities of change that has brought us to the offerings we now hold space for. For me, it is a true gift to be working with friends that we cherish and to contribute to their visions and sharing our creativity and our skills together to create signposts for our collective future. And so, for me, this is a very fulfilling way of life. And I suppose it's a place that has a very natural pull for me that also represents a deep form of trust and joy. I feel this to be part of a good way to work into the future. Now, thinking about the episodes that we've shared since I have been part of the podcast, for me, episode 107 was Tiokasin Ghosthorse on Earth languages, consciousness, and indigenous intelligence, walking Earth with the gifts of the stars. It really moved my inner landscape. And he's the embodiment of everything he speaks of. Somehow it just resonated differently with me. It stirred a different kind of memory, a deep sense of longing for beauty and for being with nature, and a very personal inquiry into what this might look like for me in its full form and embodiment. Indigenous peoples are a keystone species to the earth. We are the earth. We become the earth. We were the earth. We are the earth. We will be the earth. Earth has answered every wish, every desire, every thought in the future, in the past. She has and will always listen to us, but only if we can understand that language that she's given everything. His words still resound. Besides creating this work and hearing all these beautiful, beautiful insights, I think what kept me sane during the pandemic was daydreaming myself into landscapes that I'm yet to visit, that could bring alive my senses way beyond words, landscapes that stir my imagination and leave me with a deep sense of inner peace and a sense of awe. And the other thing was getting my hands into the earth, literally getting my hands dirty and propagating hundreds of pilia and growing a really rather large pilia family. And having these prosper around us was grounding, simply grounding. So now that we are moving from the future is beautiful into all that we are, I'm excited for this name change and the new forms for this platform that we are coming to be, all the forms that it will take. And so, I think I'm most looking forward to seeing how our community will engage and grow with it, what it will spark in this wider collective, and where that might take things. My vision of the future of my wildest dreams, I don't have a sense of clarity about this right now. But one thing I'd hope for is a future where we can simply be. Thinking about that, I feel a deep sense of relaxation and a sense of raw creativity and confidence. So these are the thoughts I wanted to share with you today. And I'm sending you all a great portion of South African sunshine. Wherever you are, I hope you have a little bit of that sense and a space where you can simply be.
We are taking just a short pause here. If you are enjoying this episode, please consider joining our community. For a small contribution, you can be part of our beautiful online world where we deepen the conversation and offer spaces of learning and practice. As a member, you are a patron supporting the making of this show, and you receive a number of benefits, such as special member-only events and discounts on all our courses, retreats, and in-person experiences. You will have membership to our app and connect with inspiring humans around the world through a social network to discuss the themes of the show away from the eyes of advertisers and the manipulation of big tech. Our membership is what makes us able to stay advertising free in a world that is always trying to sell us stuff we don't need, and it is the very heart of all that we are. Head to www.allthatweare.org/support to find out more.
I am Helly Cameron, and I am based on the border of the Savernake Forest in Wiltshire, UK. I'm joining the wonderful All That We Are team as a curator, helping to sew and weave our courses, workshops, and live events, which is very exciting. There was so much magic last season, it's hard to pick, but if I had to, then it would be the We Are Nature live panel collaboration with Noisily that we closed with, which was such a special day, and also I helped organise, starting with a magical pilgrimage through Avebury, which really landed us in our bodies and brought ceremony to the whole day, a real remembering as we journeyed through the magic and power of Avebury, her land, stones, waters, and wise trees. And I feel that embodied landing and journey really inspired a more felt conversation within us all. And that kind of sensitivity wove its way through the panel that followed. And it was nice that we had all collectively had that experience before actually then experiencing a live panel. And as Bruce said, we need to feel nature once again, to feel that I am nature. And it's not a thought process, it's an embodied process. And that really resonated and just kind of set the tone for the conversation that evolved. There's another gorgeous quote from Jimena. When we go inside and we are in our stillness, we are actually listening to the earth, we are listening to the waters, we are listening to the cosmos. It's fitting that that was the close of the season before this pause and evolution into all that we are. So I've had the biggest gift of all through lockdown in becoming a mama, which has been a beautiful and wild ride into the heart and a full body love that really puts everything else into perspective. Our little boy Finn has recently turned 1, so it is definitely keeping us on our toes and in some level of sanity, I guess. And he reminds me daily to be curious and present and to be in my heart and trust that inner knowing. And I guess also as someone who has historically overfilled her days, it's been a real gift just to slow down and to be rather than do, and to allow my heart to really take root in one place rather than being spread between many. And to be in the magic of nature, I guess that's a huge part of this time, has being on the border of such a beautiful, wise and old forest, taking the time to be with the trees and to feel their wisdom and to feel Mama Nature's rhythms and cycles. I spent a lot of time walking through the forest with the dogs, and also Finn loves trees too. So we go out hugging and whispering to them together. Oh, it's such a beautiful expansion and embodied invitation into all that we are, really at a time where there's so much polarity and division. So it feels very timely and really kind of called for, and an invitation into a living network and community where all is welcome, and a call to really surrender and feel into the living pulse of the universe, of all beings, life forces, and to welcome whatever is present for us all in the given moment, to belong in an engaged, heart-centered living community where we listen with our bodies, learn and grow together, where we can really spark and nurture seeds of new ideas and of our heart yearnings, and to offer each other a safe and sacred space where all is welcome, where we are connected in our differences, where our diversity and many paths are honored and celebrated. I also love that it's an acknowledgement of that there is so much more than us, and that when we all come together as individuals within a collective and we all really sing from our hearts, there's so much power in that, and that power is so much greater than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. Yeah, and somewhere where we can collectively inspire and dream and co-create and share from the heart and support each other on this wild ride and really feel into the precious ecosystem that we all form part of and feel into all that we are. For me, it's a living network of peaceful coexistence where all life thrives and where we really remember, spirit, where we live in love in the heart and with our beautiful earth rather than on her, and respect her resources and each other, where we listen to the animals, the trees, the soils, the waters, and really feel their wisdom at cellular level, and where our relationship to time is more spacious, and connections can flow as they are meant to, where we are all inspired by and celebrate each other's unique gifts and creativity, where all is welcome and celebrated. I guess the ultimate return to a living ecosystem where we all belong.
Amisha here, sitting right now in Hackney in East London in the UK. It's nighttime and the moon is bright, and I can see all of the lights of the city of London all around me, making like a picture of like beautiful art. I'm very high up on the 18th floor right now. I am really happy to be back with this new series of All That We Are. The last series that we had, series 5, was epic. It started the week that I went back to my parents' house from the tree house, and my dad wasn't well, and as you know, he died like 3 weeks later, and we were kind of in the series and we just didn't stop till the summer, and so it was just this like incredibly epic long series that went right through a year. There were so many episodes and conversations during that time that were completely illuminating. Something that's standing out for me is something that Jyoti said, which I don't remember if it was in a podcast or in one of our lives or in the beautiful leadership immersion, but the endings falling into the beginning, and this idea that comes from the prophecies that things might be quite tricky still until 2026. So we might still have a bit more turbulence and uncertainty and unexpected things happening that we wouldn't have been able to imagine. It makes me realize that this is really such an important time for us, and a time for discovering who we are on so many different levels. Another episode that I absolutely loved was with Claire Dubois. The energetic transmission that she gave with her words and her ways of seeing, it spoke to every cell of my being. And these words, we can activate the codes of the new world in ourselves right now and become a walking invitation for the emergence of that reality. Another episode that I really, really enjoyed was with Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys. The way in which he offered his perspective, and he said, it's a very rich time. We get to bring this spiritual teaching down into the form, you know, we get to bring it into the earth, into the way we treat each other and the earth itself, and into our communities. And one more with Pat McCabe, or Woman Stands Shining. We have to move into radical self-love and radical self-trust, because we have that knowledge in our biology. We have that knowledge in our spirit. We have that knowledge in our connection to all the life that came before. That has the wisdom to draw in what we are so deeply searching for at this time. For me, the podcast really was a huge part of my medicine during the pandemic, and it really kept me in this like open inquiry space, in this depth of experiencing it and having all these conversations every week. And also Presence Collective, having this space where we could come together as a community. We had so many epic dance parties in our circles. We'd have like these beautiful sharing circles where people would share where they were at. And, you know, a lot of it was quite challenging. And then we would dance, and I would do this kind of intuitive DJ thing that I would just play songs as they came to me, and it would just be like right for that moment. And so we danced together, you know, across the world on Zoom. It was so powerful, feeling the strength of this community really, really was medicine. Made me realize what all of this is for, you know, why do it? Being in nature was such huge medicine too. I was so lucky to be in a treehouse for some of it, to be by the sea for a year, to get to spend that time out with the night skies, the changing skies, the sunrises, the sunsets, the moonrises, the rainbows, just getting to sit in the trees and whisper with the trees, and sharing those tree whispers with the community as well. And yeah, and I got a puppy last year, Shambo, so another lockdown dog, but he's been really beautiful medicine in his own way. I don't know how he's going to let me do this series of the podcast, because I recorded a podcast earlier, and he managed to break through 2 doors just to come and be part of the conversation. So let's see. Another part of my medicine was really family, the sort of power of being with family for so long without all the interruptions and all the travel and going out to work and going away, and getting to spend that time with my mother and my nieces, my brother. And it reminded me of maybe how life might have been in a simpler time. As a child of immigrants, I didn't grow up with a lot of family around me, and we didn't have a lot of family in the UK, or any family really. Yeah, just that experience of being an adult and being around family. And I wonder what it would have been like to have lived somewhere my whole life where I knew so many people and people were so connected to my family. And yeah, really nice experience. And also to be in that space of service, I feel like that really helped me to be serving this community and serving my family, and finding where I could offer something of myself in a way where it could serve. We found this new name, All That We Are, and as some of you know, it was really quite a journey to find a new name. At one point, we actually announced the new name, The Futures, and we realized later we couldn't use it. Yeah, letting go of the futures and letting go of the future is beautiful. Like, it definitely feels right for this time, and I love All That We Are, and it came collaboratively through this team. We were sharing ideas and having calls and kind of inspiring each other, and then suddenly this landed, All That We Are. And I feel like it's just this really beautiful invitation that there is all that we are. Like, as human beings, we're all human beings together, and as like the more than human world and the unseen and the shadows and just all of it, like we can embrace all of it into this space of our wholeness and into the space of what we're becoming and what's possible. And so it feels right for this time. It really does. And I'm not someone that's afraid to change our name. We've changed it quite a few times. We started as Think, Act, Vote, and our book was first called The Future We Choose before it became The Future is Beautiful, and now All That We Are. So we've been on this journey, and with it, that identity and that invitation has shifted, because for me, I was really feeling that The Future is Beautiful. It just didn't open the door for people that may be struggling at this time, because it's not an easy time. And so my hope is that All That We Are opens that door into possibility, and that we also really retain with it this connection to vision, this connection to visioning the futures of our wildest dreams. Some of you might not know, but when we started this in 2010, it was all around this question, what is the future you choose? And you can find a whole lot of this in our book. It's got over 200 contributors sharing their visions of the world they want to live in, and how we can create it. I was just reading actually what I wrote back then in 2010, and it's still, some of it, I mean, some of the language feels old to me, but some of it still feels so true. The future I choose is a world that is driven by love and respect, not fear and greed. We'll all be on the same side and working together in support of each other. We'll be using our creative energy to solve the world's problems, and we'll be having fun whilst we're doing it. In the future I choose, it's one when we're not afraid to share what's important to us and the world we want to create, and can then work together with trust and respect. In the future I choose, we're free to do the right thing without fear of repercussions, and our actions take the ways in which they will affect others into account. And it feels really like this journey of, opening up to this space of vision. For me, some of it is so simple, like the future of my wildest dreams right now. It's so just being in a place where we can really be who we are as human beings, and that we can live from that place of soul, and that we can support each other, and that we can have our basic needs met, and that we can free up our intuition and imagination and our creativity and bring that into this world. And so I am just so delighted to have this incredible team, and that we're now working together, all of these women from all over the world, and that we're sharing to bring together a whole new series of the podcast and these beautiful courses from Me to We that will start soon. The membership, where we'll have more events and all kinds of things happening there to connect you, and our app, and another round of the beautiful leadership immersion and mentoring starting in early April. So yeah, it's all happening, and it's really an incredible time. And really, I just want to share my gratitude with each one of you for being part of this journey. Let's discover together all that we are becoming, and all that is possible.
Thank you for listening and spending your time with us. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book, and discover so much more over on allthatweare.org. We give space to our guests to share their perspective without debating it or fact-checking, as this approach allows for deep, unedited conversations from the heart. We trust your discernment and wisdom to take what is useful and challenge what isn't in your own understanding. We offer spaces for discussion and integration in our membership community. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has sparked some inspiration and creativity in you. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible by you, our beautiful community. If you loved this and would like to connect more deeply with us, please join our membership. For less than a tea or coffee a day, you can access our community conversations and benefits such as our app and member gatherings, as well as being a patron whose support makes this podcast happen. Please also hit subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen so others find us. All That We Are celebrates all that we are already
and the untapped potential that lives inside us. It invites the full power of the more than human world, nature, the unseen, our ancestors and our future generations. It reminds us that we never exist in silo, through borders, timelines, or polarity, that in each and every moment, all that we are is here.